Toronto Raptors made the bold decision of choosing Colin Murray Boyles with the ninth overall pick, someone who is a great defensive player. They also went on to select Elijah Martin in the second round as well, who is also known for his defense. And then they went on to sign undrafted Chucky Hepburn, who is also known for his defense. So for today's video, I'm going to be discussing how the Raptors are changing the philosophy, and could this be a case of the Toronto Raptors making the same mistake yet once again? So if you're ready to watch this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button. And with that being said, let's get into today's video. And before we get started, I do want to say that I do not have any issues with the Toronto Raptors and which players they have selected. Each of those players are really good. But when the Raptors made the decision of firing head coach Nick Nurse, a coach that helped them win the championship, the Raptors talked about how they need a culture change. In fact, Masai Ujiri went on to state in the presser that I did not enjoy watching us this year, which led to a philosophy change in the Toronto Raptors, a Raptors organization that was known for drafting defensive first players that weren't particularly good on the offensive side. They weren't able to shoot, but they firmly believed that they were able to develop some of these players, as Pascal Siakam was a good case of that. And when the Raptors decided to have a philosophy change, Masai Ujiri had this to say regarding the roster. We're going to really look at how our roster is built, pretty much indicating that they'll be moving away from drafting defense first players that aren't able to shoot, and maybe focus more on some different types of players. Well, when they brought in Darko's system and Darko Rajakovic, it was quite obvious that they wanted a system which included shooting, passing, and ball movement as well. And that was quite evident when the Toronto Raptors decided to take Grady Dick and Jacoby Walter as well, to really shift away from what their prototype was. But it seems as if the Toronto Raptors are going back to their old ways, because what their prototype used to be were defense first guys that weren't able to shoot. And it seems like they are going back to that because they drafted three players. They took three players in the draft that shot an average of 31.4% from the three in their last season in college. Now, why is this such an issue for the Toronto Raptors, you may ask? I mean, it worked out great before, but wasn't the whole point of getting rid of Nick Nurse and just having a roster overhaul was to kind of change your philosophy and the way you draft and the way you have your roster built? Because we clearly saw that the type of roster that the Raptors built previously, which was so focused on defense, the 6'9 vision, it clearly did not work. Yet the Raptors decided they're going to resort back to that because they saw the Raptors roster last year and they decided that this roster definitely needs a little bit more defense. But fast forward a few seasons to now, the Raptors took three guys that are not able to shoot the three-point ball well. They actually are players, that can put up points, but they are different types of players. You need passing, but most importantly, you need shooting in Darko's system. And this is what leads me to believe that Masai Ujiri is very indecisive when it comes to drafting players, but also just roster construction as well. And this is what he had to say. Again, I want to go back to some of his quotes because it's quite evident when the Raptors fired Nick Nurse that they were going to change how the outlook of the roster was. And Masai went on to state, we have to figure out shooting on the roster in some kind of way, yet we're drafting players that we used to draft 3 years ago. Again, my issue is not with these type of players. They're individually great players. As you guys know, I really like Colin Murray Boyles. I talked about him several videos ago when I talked about realistic targets for the Toronto Raptors, but you have to wonder if it's the right players that are in the wrong system. Darko's system requires a lot of ball movement, and that's great. But how is it going to work when you don't have shooters? You can move the ball 20 times in one position if you want, but if no one is a good shooter, if they keep passing because they're not confident in their shot, how is this going to work? That is my big question and concern with the Toronto Raptors, but also most importantly, this entire idea of best player available and rather than drafting for positional need. Now, I agree with the sentiment, but you can't keep drafting the same position time and time and time yet once again. If you look at this chart here, the Raptors positional needs, they have currently on the roster 8 guards, 1 center, 5 forwards, and the one small forward is actually Jamison Battle. I have not listed RJ Barrett here because I wasn't sure if I should put him in the guards position or small forward position, but you really have to wonder what the Raptors are doing here, right? Because they change their philosophy, they change their culture, yet it seems like they're so indecisive about what they want to do, and they kind of seem to be jumping back and forth. Again, the players they have drafted are very good players. I am happy with them, but you have to wonder what Masai Ujiri is thinking with some of his decisions. Because look, now I know a lot of people are going to say, well, you can trade players, you can figure the positional needs out later. But now all of a sudden, when you're trading for players, other teams know that you need a center. Other teams know what your roster really needs, and this leaves you at a disadvantage. Haven't we seen this picture yet once again? I mean, we saw this before where the Raptors needed a center and then they ended up paying more because teams were obviously well aware of the situation of the Raptors where they needed a center. So you really have to question the Raptors overall. Look, I understand the logic. I totally understand because we've seen so many teams pass on players because it wasn't best available player and they chose for positional need. But at some point, you have to decide you need a center. You have to decide you need, certain positions filled in. And most importantly, my main concern with Masai Ujiri and just overall the management has been you can draft defense first guys, but you can also have defense first guys that are able to score, that are able to shoot the ball. And that is my main concern with the Toronto Raptors. It seems like Masai is either all in or all out. Like you can't rebuild and then half a season later decide you're going to trade for Brandon Ingram and now you're going to push the Raptors to close to the luxury tax, right? You're not going to just decide to change the roster overall so quickly, and that is my main concern with the Raptors, where it just seems like Messiah is so indecisive. And even Dan Tolzman as well, he had an interview before the draft where he stated that he is looking for players that can play in the playoffs. Like we're just missed the playoffs last season. We're 11th, 12th team in the Eastern Conference. Let's talk about winning in the regular season before we focus on players that can help you win in the playoffs. Like these are the kind of discussions you have when you're someone that's a seventh, sixth place team, eighth place team, where you're making the playoffs and you're looking for improvement and how you can start winning in the playoffs and players that can impact during the playoffs. This should not be the mindset of we're going to either tear it all down or we're going to look for players that are going to help us win in the playoffs because the regular season is 82 games. So I really struggle to feel with the Raptors' logic and mindset of when they decide to pass on centers. And again, this isn't a shot on Elijah Martin. This isn't a shot at Chucky as well. But you really have to question the mindset of the Toronto Raptors when they continuously keep taking 6'2 guys. I mean, there's a desperate need for small forwards as well. And just, I fail to understand the Raptors because I know what they're trying to do right now. They're trying to copy and mimic what the Oklahoma City Thunder did with all of their defense as well. But the one thing they forget is the Oklahoma City Thunder also have a very good two-way player in Jalen Williams. They also have the MVP as well. So it's not easy to mimic that type of roster, which is why I actually wanted the Raptors to focus on trying to copy the way that the Indiana Pacers built their roster because it fits in what the Raptors head coach has. Now you're giving the head coach a bunch of players that are not able to shoot the threes. And I understand that the Raptors need defense, guys. This is not me failure to understand that the Raptors need defense. It is a big part of the Toronto Raptors, helping them win games as well. But it is very frustrating to see the Raptors constantly pass on players and not really focus on position, particularly at the center position, because now we're going to go into next season with only Jakob Pearl. And if he gets injured, now this all of a sudden, everything you built this roster up for with Brandon Ingram, everything you wanted to do was win. Now that's going to backfire on you. And if you're trying to trade for a center, that complicates things a lot further as well. So I know this seems like a rant video, but I really do have my concerns moving forward because the Raptors seem very, very confused about what they want to do. They draft Grady Dick and then they decide they're not going to draft those type of players and they're going to focus on defense first guys that can't shoot. Like you need to be able to draft both type of players, but also you can draft guys that are able to play both on the offensive and defensive side as well. So again, I know this is going to come across as a very negative video. I do like the individual players, and I will be making a video on them as well. But I have my concerns for the Raptors moving forward. So what are your thoughts on this video? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And that will be it for today's video. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have yourselves a great day.